Hi everyone, I am so excited because I am speaking with author Frances Liardet, and we are going to be talking about her brand new book just came out called We Must Be Brave, and she's got it right there. It's only been out for a little bit more than a week, and I am so happy that I get to see this cover like this. I love this cover. Tell me about it, Frances. Tell me about how you picked that cover.
Well, I was very lucky in my designers at GP Putnam and
Yes.
Sons, which is part of Penguin Random House, and we worked on something that had a really solid concept of wartime, the young woman, the small girl, and the country village. And so we managed, between us, they managed to work their genius and get all these wonderful elements into the cover. We have the two people here.
Yeah.
We have the country village. This is actually my grandmother's house,
Oh
just
my
there.
goodness.
Yes, I found an archive photo of my grandmother's village, and the artwork people decided to go with that. So my mother, you can imagine, is absolutely over the
Oh
moon.
my gosh.
And then up here in the sky, we have some aeroplanes.
I didn't even see that on the
So now,
digital.
yes, it's beautifully. It's all faded out just to show these wonderful
I
people who
love
are
that.
so solid, and you immediately want to know what they're doing. In the story, they're actually going to go to this house. That's the next thing that's going to happen. So I hope that lots of people will follow them and go
Oh,
into the house with them and find out what happens.
oh my gosh. And you know what? This book is 464 pages. And I felt like when I was in the book, like you feel like you're such a part of it. When you're reading a long book like that, you get so involved in the characters. And I finished it really late last night and I was like crying and then I had to go to sleep and because you just don't want it to end. It's just so beautiful and I love the ending. Love it. But we're going to talk
Oh,
because we don't talk endings. We're going to talk beginnings, okay? And I wrote some things down. I wrote some quotes. First of all, the beginning of this book, we start in December 1940, and you start with this beautiful beginning. She was fast asleep on the back seat of the bus, curled up, thumb in mouth, 4, maybe 5 years old. And I was like, it's almost like you can so picture that, this little girl just in the back. And I was like, okay, so why did we start in December of 1940? Why did we decide to start there?
well, it was a period of very high air raid activity, and it was a point at which the city of Southampton was bombed for 2 nights in a row, for several hours each time. On the second night, the fire was so bright that the enemy planes could see it from Cherbourg on the coast of France. So it was a really turning point moment. That was the first very, very big raid where women, children, families, all kinds of places were hit, not just factories and docks and engineering and this sort of thing. So it was a moment of very high emotion and huge distress. And it was also around that period, it's called, the darkest hour,
Yes.
when the British really had to fall back on their own resources and try, most of all, just to maintain morale and to try and keep everybody steady and not let people despair. And so it was a very good point, a very dramatic point in which to begin the story and to have this child turn up on the bus. As people did, they did leave the city. Not everybody could find room in a shelter, and a lot of people did go. And then they went back again the next night, the next day, to clear up the city and try and carry on with their lives. And this actually became a pattern for some of the coastal cities, that people would, if they knew a raid was coming, they would leave the city overnight and then go back again to take up their jobs and things. So actually quite a sensible thing to do. So anyway, this little girl actually gets parted from her mother and she ends up alone on this bus. And her name is Pamela. And the person who finds her is called Ellen, and she's a young woman. So they are the two people.
Oh,
This is Ellen, the young woman, and this is the young Pamela, who, as the book opens, Ellen thinks is, as you say, 4, maybe 5 years old.
yes, and then the end of the first chapter, which is always like my favorite part of a book. You say, then she took her thumb out. The ladies said they'd find Mummy. They said so. I think they will. She put her thumb back in and shut her eyes. And I was like, that was the moment I just fell in love with Pamela. And, I told you I was listening to the audiobook, and I just want to give like so much praise to the people who put that audiobook together, because they did. I don't know if you have heard it yet, but it is like, I listen to a lot of audiobooks in my, passing, and this was one of the best produced audiobooks I have listened to. They did the voices of the little girl, and you never got lost along the way with all the characters. So I don't know if you've heard that from anyone, so I thought I should tell you.
I have. Well, I was just blown away by it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. They took enormous care in getting it right, in finding the right people to voice the characters. They asked me carefully how I felt they would speak, for that era, and what sort of voice that I felt they would have. So they went to the absolute limit in putting it together. And as you say, I think the production values are so high. It's absolutely wonderful listen. And I'm really enjoying listening to it.
Oh my gosh. And I know a lot of people listen to audiobooks because of traveling, and just know this is really one to spend your money on, because even as the women age, because this is not just one time period. This goes this is a lot of time periods and a lot of characters, but they managed to make each voice, and even as they age, each voice so unique. I was just blown away. Like I said, I've never listened to it. Was meant for me to listen to this because it was unbelievable. I kept telling people as I saw them yesterday, I'm like, this is the best audiobook I've ever. It was like a show. It was like a production, like it was crazy. So yeah, it was
really is good. It really is good.
Yeah. So when you were writing Pamela, like, I kept thinking about, like, you did her ages so well. And as the little girl, we fall in love with her as a little girl. And her sentence structure, and, like, it was just beautiful. Did you have a hard time with that?
Not overly. I was blessed with a daughter who came along quite late in my life, and she was 4 when I started it. So I put her into school and started writing. And so my daughter was probably around 9 when I finished. So it was actually not easy, but I had an awful lot of material to work with. You know what I mean?
Yes.
To get her right. Pamela isn't my daughter. My daughter sometimes thinks she's Pamela, but actually I say to her, no, you're not Pamela. Pamela is a different child. But yeah, I had it at hand, if you know what I mean. The child's voice continually running through my life. It was a real life thing happening for me at the time. So obviously that helped. Yeah, a great deal.
Yeah, and I loved how you went back to tell Ellen's story. That was like such a favorite part of mine. It's so unique in how you handled historical fiction. I read a lot of historical fiction, but I love how you did that. How her I don't even know what to say. It's so emotional. And everybody's saying that. I know I'm not the only one, because I went and read on Amazon, and everybody's like, this is so emotional. And I'm like, oh, good. It's not just my menopause. I am falling in love with them.
Yeah. I've never been more delighted at people crying. It's terrible. People go, I cried. Oh, good. Great. It's funny. But, there again, when I was looking into that time period, I found, I know a lot about that time period anyway, just being a grandchild, you learn during your life what life was like in that time. And it was a really, really hard time for so many people. There wasn't, not even, let alone the depression and all those various other catastrophes that happened to influence people's lives at the time, but just simply living in the 20s and 30s in Britain, for many, many, many people, was no picnic. It really wasn't. And all those hoarding and scraping and parsimonious, thrifty habits that I saw my grandparents use during the war were not simply taught in the war. They were a natural part of their lives growing up. Every piece of string, every sliver of soap, every book, paper was very, very carefully used, and written out fully. And even I now, I wasn't alive during that time, but when I see my child or lots of kids together and they're all drawing and they draw two things and they chuck the paper away, no, you can't do that. So it goes quite deep.
It does.
So it was and people did have these terrible times. People did run out of coal. Mothers did, families did get bereavement and things, and catastrophes did happen with people. So
yeah,
it was that was something that I really valued writing about in her life. I wanted her to be that kind of person who had been through that before the war even started.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because my grandmother grew up during the Depression, and I have the weirdest quirks, like a piece of tinfoil. If I use it on something, like I can't throw it away. Like, because I was raised with her, and it's like the weirdest, like I just get, and about food, like throwing food away for me is just like, I'll use it in almost anything. I will find something to use food different things. Because it seems such a waste, and it's like, it's a part of who I am. And when you grow up with that mentality of waste, I so understand what you're talking about, because I know my children give me a very hard time about it. So.
Absolutely. I went into a supermarket the other day and a young man handed me a leaflet saying, "What to do with leftovers?" And I said, "I don't need this leaflet." What are you talking about? But people are actually being taught now, once again, what to do with leftovers. They didn't know.
That is so funny. I know. I'm like, I can teach a course in what to do with leftovers. I know what to do with. I can make anything out of, So that's awesome. And that's what, the backstory. I mean, this book, okay, like I said, it's long, and I was like thinking to myself, is this your first historical fiction?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And so, like, I had a hard time believing that, because like I said, I read a lot, and I was like, no way, is this our first? Like, I mean, it is a genre that is very difficult to break into, and you have done it so beautifully that, I mean, are you thinking are you going to continue to write historical fiction?
Well, that's very kind of you to say so. I feel that I'm a character first person, obviously, and I think it was more that when I was speaking, I wanted to talk about the feelings that I had about my own history and about my family. And so where I sit generationally, my parents were children during the war, and my grandparents fought that war, and their parents fought the First World War. So that is the history of my family. And writing about parenthood quite late in life, at the moment when my parents are, hopefully they've got many good years left, but there's no denying that they are now in their 80s. There comes a point where you feel a turn of the wheel and you want to bear witness somehow to those lives. And so for me, I had to write about the Second World War, because that was how I sit. That was where my parents were. So I didn't set out to say, right, I'm going to write a book about World War II. That's not how it happened. I'm writing about memory and childhood and family from this particular generational point of view. So I was able just to draw in the war as it came to me. And certainly my next book is also going to concern, large parts of it are going to concern the Second World War and the years shortly after as well. So I will be going back into historical fiction. I mean, my mother groans when she hears people say that her childhood is now historical fiction. It's absolutely appalling for her. It is unfortunately true. Yeah.
Right. Well, tell her that I've heard the 60s is now historical fiction. So, and I was born in the 60s. So they can make it whatever they want. Historical fiction can be any kind of history they want it to be. But, it's such a gift, because that you still have them to be able to help you, remember stories and to tell you stories. Because I know when my parents passed away, that was the one thing, like, as a reader and I used to ask my mom questions, but then all of a sudden I had 100 more after she passed away.
Yes.
Yes. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of, why didn't I think of that? So I think it's beautiful that you're doing this and you have them to help you with the stories, because it's precious. It's a precious time,
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm very lucky.
Yeah. So anyway, I let's show this book cover again. I am so excited for you. Every time I see people talking about it, and I've been bragging about it all over the place, I get so excited for you. It is doing so well. It's only been out a week, and you must be thrilled. You just must be
I'm
thrilled.
absolutely
Uh,
thrilled. I was lucky enough to go to New York City last week, and I was
yes.
able to go and sign lots of copies in pretty much every Barnes and Noble in Manhattan. It's lovely people. I had a super time doing that. And I met my lovely American agent, Deborah Schneider, for the first time. I had the great pleasure of meeting her and also meeting up with my lovely American editor at GP Putnam's Sons. And her name is Tara Singh Carlson. And I'm hugely grateful to her. She's a wonderful lady. So I'm
Yes.
very,
Well,
very
you know what?
lucky.
I don't live that far from New York City, and I know that there are Barnes and Nobles almost every, like when you're walking around, you can find a lot of Barnes and Nobles in New York City. So I can
Yes,
understand.
yes.
Well, thank you so much, Frances. I can't wait for your next one.
Thank you.
Please, you know where to find me. I will read it early. I will get it out there. I love your writing. I loved being in this book. I spent a huge part of my day in this book, and it was amazing.
Oh,
So, thank you so much.
thank you
Yes.
so much, Michelle. It's been a great pleasure spending time with you.
I'm going
Thank
to
you.
have all of France's links listed underneath here. I'm going to have the IndieBound link so you can find it in your local bookstore and the Amazon if you just want to push that button like I do 90% of my life and get the book immediately. So thank you, Frances. Have a great day.
Thank you too, Michelle.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.